tried everything. Brownies, swimming, tennis, all sorts of after-school activities, but I would quickly get bored and be looking for something else to do. One day, my mum showed me a poster at the local leisure centre advertising squash lessons and asked me if I would like to try. I told her yes, and that is where my story begins. I was not a natural squash player, and I think that is why I have done so well in my sport. Quite often you find children who are naturally talented, but because it comes so easily to them, they end up giving up. For me, it was the total opposite. Squash didn't come easily to me, but I loved it, so I was willing to work hard. I remember having a terrible backhand, but a very patient coach who spent hours with me, just feeding me backhands until it became stronger than my forehand. To this day, it is still much stronger than my forehand, and I'm lucky to have had such a patient coach. I played for my county at every age group from under 10 to under 19. My best national ranking was number 8 in England as an under 19 player. When I was 16, I took my first coaching course and started doing some part-time coaching to make some extra money as I was still at school. It seemed like a great idea as I was getting paid to do something I loved to do. Little did I know that taking my coaching exams would turn out to be very important, as it is how I ended up coming to live in Barbados. Growing up in a sporting environment proved to be very important to me. At school I didn't have lots of friends and never really felt like I fit in, but at the squash club I was part of a big family. I suddenly had lots of friends because we all had something in common, our love of squash. And it wasn't just kids that I became friends with, but adults too. For me, it was actually easier to hang out with the adults because I was mature for my age. To this day, most of my friends are older than me. I think what squash taught me more than anything was how to form relationships with all different types of people. It didn't matter how much money people had, what they did for a job, what colour they were, if they were older or younger, male or female. All that mattered was that we all loved to play squash. And because of that, most of my lifelong friendships were formed. Even though squash is an individual sport, we play as a team too at certain events, and this is where I learned one of my most valued lessons. When you're playing for yourself and you play badly or get mad and give up, the only person that you let down is yourself. When you're a part of a team, you let every single person on that team down. Because of this, I always played my best squash in team matches because I never wanted to disappoint my teammates. To this day, I love team squash more than anything. I love the camaraderie that it brings. One of my best examples and memories of this is in 2002, when the Barbados ladies team played in the Southern Caribbean Championships. We were playing the final against Guyana in a match that could have gone either way. On top of that, a couple of us were fighting the flu, and one of the girls badly sprained her ankle during the match. But because we were all so close and wanted to win for each other, every single one of us went on the court that afternoon and won. It was quite an achievement and proved to me how powerful team spirit can be. I think for me, the best thing that squash has brought to my life, other than the friendships, is that it has brought me to Barbados. I met a fellow squash player who happened to be a Bajan living in England shortly after I started to play. We became best friends, and when I was 13, I came to Barbados for the first time and totally fell in love with everything here. I came back many times after, usually for a squash tournament, and eventually had the opportunity to move here in 2000 to teach squash. Since moving here, I've had my best moments in my sport. My first tournament playing for Barbados was the Southern Caribbean Championships in 2002. It was a dream come true to win the individuals, the women's team event and the overall team event, and the perfect start to my national career. I've played for Barbados every year since then, at Caribbean, CAC and Pan American level. I've won a Southern Caribbean and Caribbean title, 3 bronze medals and 1 silver medal at the CAC Games, and a silver medal at the Pan American Squash Championships. I have the honour of being 12-time national champion and a silver medalist at the World Masters. In 2010, after what I can only describe as a dream year, I became Barbados Sports Personality of the Year. After my dream year came my biggest challenge as an athlete when I tore a tendon in my shoulder. As most athletes do, I ignored it and played through the pain for as long as I could. But eventually I had to admit that I was going to have to get it fixed. Surgery terrified me, because if something went wrong, that would be the end of the thing that I love to do more than anything else in the world. Luckily, I found a great surgeon who repaired what he described as a big enough tear that he could push his finger right through it. Recovery from the surgery was probably one of my most difficult life experiences. At times, I honestly thought I would never play squash again. The recovery was difficult and painful, but my goal was to play in the World Masters in July, and that is what kept me going. I was fortunate to have a great therapist and then a great trainer at the gym. They both pushed me to my limits, and without them my recovery would have been much slower. There were many times when I was reduced to tears of frustration, but my years as an athlete taught me not to give up. The thought of not being a competitive squash player was not an option, so I pushed through the pain barriers. And after 7 months off court, finally managed to hit my first squash ball.